What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with your DFS Bargains for Week 15. Before we get started, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Alarm. Now, this video is focused on main slate, so unfortunately that eliminates quite a few options, but do not worry, it's okay because there is still some great value here. At quarterback, Tua TAGOVAILOA is the clear, cheap bargain facing the Jets. The Jets are just flat out an ideal matchup. Tua faced the Jets in Week 11, where he completed 27 of his 33 attempts for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I fully expect him to repeat his production this week, so Tua will definitely pay off at his pricing. But if you're worried about the fact that everyone is going to be targeting this Jets matchup, and you want to pivot away from something potentially a bit chalky, I really like Jimmy Garoppolo this week. Since Week 8, Jimmy G is QB5 in total fantasy points scored and QB9 in average points per game. And this week he faces Atlanta, a team that is 29th in DVOA against the pass. And over the past 6 weeks, he's had a total of 11 touchdowns. I'm more than willing to target Jimmy G in Week 15. Now, I have to be a little bit flexible in terms of pricing this week for bargain running backs because once you dip down too cheap, things start to get a little bit sketchy to the point where I would feel awful advising you to go with some of these guys down here. With that said, I am recommending Chase Edmonds as a solid option this week. He was inactive last week, so James Conner had a huge game as the only running back, and unfortunately, Conner actually suffered an injury, and as of the filming of this video, we don't know the severity of it, but if Conner can't go, that would leave Edmonds as the primary back facing a Detroit defense that, quite frankly, I think I could get 100 yards on. Now, even if Conner does play, I'd still feel comfortable going with Edmonds at his pricing. Both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams were amazing last week against Detroit, so there should be plenty of carries to go around. Donta Foreman is another very friendly matchup option who is still very reasonably priced. Foreman separated himself last week as the lead-ish back in the Tennessee Titans offense. Last week he had 13 carries for 47 yards and 2 receptions for 15 yards. Jeremy McNichols had 8 carries for 16 yards. And Dontrell Hilliard had 6 carries for 13 yards. So for the second week in a row, Foreman has shown that he is the superior back in that offense. Pittsburgh is very run-friendly, giving up over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns last week to Dalvin Cook. If Foreman can literally just be half, I'll even take 40% of what Dalvin Cook was, that payoff can be very great at his pricing. Moving on to wide receivers, I love Jalen Waddle in this matchup against the long-suffering Jets defense, but this is DFS Bargains. The bargain here is DeVanте Parker. Prior to the bye week, Parker returned from IR, catching all 5 of his targets for 62 yards. He wasn't around for the Dolphins' Week 11 game against the Jets. In that game, Mac Hollins caught 2 of 3 targets for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. The opportunity will be there for Parker to have a productive day and pay off in your lineup. Now, we talked about the Miami players, and if you want to bring it back with a Jets player, Braxton Berrios could be your guy. Berrios is a guy who steps up when the Jets receiving core is facing injuries and is wildly irrelevant when everyone is healthy. But here we are with the Jets facing injuries yet again. And when Berrios has played more than 40% of snaps, he has had a minimum of 7 targets this year. Berrios is cheap, so it won't take much for him to pay off, and you will save a ton of salary. Now, we're going to double up here and go with Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis as 2 great value-add options. Facing Carolina's pass defense is not a great matchup, but Emmanuel Sanders is injured, and Buffalo's bread and butter is their pass game. You can take 2 different approaches here. Both are reasonably priced. Beasley is higher priced, and of the 2, he's also the one that actually has the more reliable pass volume. But if you want to go with the cheaper option and less of a technical lock, but with higher upside and touchdown opportunities, you can go with Gabe Davis as your man. Just build your lineups accordingly. And we're going to squeeze one more in here because the news that literally just came through of DeAndre Hopkins being out for the remainder of the season, meaning that AJ Green could be the wide receiver 1 in that offense and is coming off a team-high 102-yard performance last week. He is low-priced, and he is facing a Detroit defense, that Detroit defense we talked about that struggles to stop teams. Another double-digit performance is well within the realm of possibility here. He could pay off big time. And at tight end, I'm going to look at the very, very low priced Nick VANNETT. Over the past 2 weeks, he's averaged 5 targets and 3 receptions per game, and the yardage has been decent, 44 yards and 48 yards. Tampa Bay is in the bottom 10 of fantasy points allowed to tight ends. All this punt play right here needs is a repeat of last week's performance with a little bit more added on, maybe a little yardage, maybe even a touchdown, and you're in business. And that wraps things up for this week's DFS Bargains. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Alarm as always, and come back next week for another round of DFS Bargains.